Hello guys, my name is Alex and welcome back for AOR, this time for the Hungarian and for the Belgian Grand Prix. And as always, we start with the drivers table. After the last round in Germany, we had a decent round there, although we struggled a bit with the setup. So we are currently in P6 and we try to improve on that and get closer to P4 at the moment, because I think the top three are a bit too consistent and I don't really have the time to practice that much for the races. So yeah, we have to see how it goes. We are here for the first round in Hungary and the pace was quite decent. I found a setup which worked quite well in qualifying and in the race. And in terms of strategy, it's basically a one-stop, starting on softs and finish the race on medium tires. But as you can see, we are currently on the medium tires, which is basically because my last run on the softs was not ideal. I basically made a slight mistake in one of the corners and got my lap invalidated, so it was actually not that bad in the end, but yeah, the lap itself was quite decent. I think it was one of the fastest compared to the other guys on the medium tires, so not too bad. And starting on mediums in general is not a disadvantage, is actually an advantage, because the tires feel quite good and the temperatures are quite fine as well. Especially on the ultra softs, you can get a lot of high temperatures and you really try to avoid it at any cost, because you don't really want to do a two-stop, because overtaking is here quite difficult. And yeah, so far the lap is looking quite decent. Around the final corner you get a bit of understeer there, but it's not too major. We cross the line and we are in P2, which turns to P8 at the end. And to be honest, I was quite happy with the result, because starting on a different compound in P8 is quite a good sign, and hopefully we are able to fight the top people as we were in the race like Canada. And here we are, we have 5 red lights and it's lights out and away we go. We get quite a decent launch, if you keep in mind that we are starting on the slower compounds, and for us at the moment it's about surviving, try to avoid carnage, braking a bit early into turn 1. We don't really want any kind of contact, because we have a good chance to get good points in this race, so we don't really want to destroy our race in the first few corners. So yeah, so far so good. We are still in P8, which is really good, and we were able to manage the gap to the cars ahead, which is really important. And something that's also quite important around here is that you really keep your car within the track limits, as I think Dominic tried to go up on our inside, but it's really difficult to make a move stick there. And yeah, what I was saying was that you have to be really careful in terms of track limits. It's easy to get a penalty around here, especially when you're in dirty air. And we are already in lap 6, which is basically because we didn't really had too many opportunities to attack the cars in front, because yeah, our tires get better and better with every following lap, but at the beginning they are not as fast as the softs, obviously. And now is the time where we will have the advantage. You can see Aresi is struggling a bit with the tires and he lets us go, which is really nice from him. And now we have Curly ahead, who's also a bit struggling with the tires, and one lap later, in lap 8, we are right behind him. And let's see, are we able to make a move here? We are using the slipstream and he doesn't really defend the inside, so we are braking late and make the position stick up into P6 now. And now it's about to close down the gap to the cars ahead. We really try to be as close to them as possible, because they will get an undercut over us when they pit for the medium tires, and that is the point where we really have to push in order to minimize the damage we get. And we are already in lap 13. We closed the gap quite a bit compared to the others, and so far it's looking quite decent. As you can see, they are also fighting, which is helping us quite a lot, because yeah, when you fight you're losing a lot of time. And yeah, that was the whole plan. being very patient, but also aggressive in terms of speed in order to stay close to them. And at the end of lap 13 we were able to close the gap completely, and we are now right behind Tim. And let's see, are we able to make a move into turn 1? We are really close, and again we are using the slipstream and the DRS to get past. I think my wings were a bit too high for this track. You can see we are not that quicker compared to him, which yeah, is a bit alarming, because we still have to overtake people in order to get a good result. The better tires won't really do enough the job for us, if that makes sense. And yeah, we're now in lap 15, and now we have clean air, so we have to push like crazy in order to minimize the damage, as I said. And we have Ollie behind us. You can see the gap is about 2 seconds, 1 and 1.8 seconds, and he was not really able to close the gap completely. I think he was maybe half a tenth quicker at the later stages of the race, but despite that we had the same pace, and so far it's looking quite good. I think we also don't really have any kind of warning so far, so it's looking really great. And you can see Dominic tried the undercut on us, but he was not really able to complete it, which means that we are joining in P8 where we started, although a few people still have to go into the pits, and now it's about driving as fast as possible to close the gap to the cars ahead. Despite we have to keep in mind that we don't really want to overshoot the corners, and yeah, it's quite a tricky job, but it's also a lot of fun, because now we can push with clean air and use our tires. But to be honest, I was a bit surprised about the pace we had on the softs, because normally it should be a bit better compared to what it was. I didn't really know what was going on in the race, but my pace on the mediums was actually really quick, but on the softs it was not ideal. You can see we closed the gap by around 5/10, and it was not as much as I would have hoped, because normally with a better tire you would expect that you are normally around 7 to 8 tenths, maybe more quicker, and we didn't really gain too much time. And you can see at the end of lap 24 we closed the gap again, and you can see we used quite a bit of ERS in order to be really close in the final corner, and he's also already defending the inside, and we try to go around the outside. We brake really late and try to go around the outside, but somehow we got a penalty from that, which is an absolute joke again. And again we try to go around the outside, but yeah, we are not really able to make the position stick. But the real problem starts now, because you can see that we used a lot of ERS in that lap, and one lap later we try it again, because we simply have to if we want to maximize our strategy. And again we had to use a lot of ERS in the lap to stay close to him. And again we are closing. This time he's not really defending the inside, because he knows that we are both losing time if we fight. And at the moment I have the better tires, so it's probably good to let me go. And now we have Michael ahead, and we also have to keep in mind that the penalty is not really helping, although at the end we basically got it removed, because it was just a joke. And yeah, now it's about closing the gap to the cars ahead. I think ahead of us were Michael and Flores, and we're around 5 tenths a lap quicker. And you can see in lap 31 we closed the gap completely. But unfortunately we are in a situation where it's difficult to overtake, as we get another penalty for basically nothing. I don't really even know whether we crossed the line with all 4 tires. I'm really unsure about that. I think it was at maximum 2 tires or 3 tires. So we got another penalty for a joke, and again, you can see we are close, but not close enough for a dive, and Michael gets the DRS and the slipstream from Flores ahead, and it's impossible for us to overtake. I think in clean air, I think I would have been able to create a gap or overtake them and then create a gap, but at the moment it's just impossible. And we are also already skipping to the last lap of the race. You can see both McLarens went side by side, and we now have Tim right on our outside. I was not really expecting him to do a move, but at this point his tires should be better than ours, and he goes for the inside. We are trying to stick it around the outside, but he shoves us up off a bit, which was hard but fair, I think. And now Ollie tries to go up on our inside, but we squeezed him out a bit, and we were able to defend our position. And it's really close now. We defend the inside a bit. We don't really want any kind of dive bomb in this corner complex. And again, Ollie tries it in my inside, which is not really an overtaking spot. And he also said sorry for this at the end of the race. And you can see that Dominic retired from the race. He had a collision with Ollie after this contact, which is really unfortunate. He couldn't do anything about this. And yeah, at the moment we're in P6. I think if we would have been a bit quicker on the softs, we had a chance to finish probably on the podium, but yeah, it wasn't meant to be, and we crossed the line in P5, which is also not too bad. Again, points, something that I always like, as everyone, but yeah, at the moment we don't really get the big points, which is unfortunate, but I'm sure if we continue like this, it's just a matter of time. And we're already skipping to the Belgian Grand Prix in the qualifying session, and you can see it's quite strange. We have wet weather in qualifying, but we have dry tires as qualifying tires, so it's actually really interesting. And in the race it says that there will be rain as well, and in this race I didn't really want to make a similar mistake I did in Baku, and that was the reason I chose a setup which is quite defensive. It's not really a dry setup. It's a bit more aggressive than a rain setup, but it's definitely a bit slower, as you will see. And here you could see my first two runs in the qualifying. They were not ideal. The second one was actually quite decent, but in the bus stop I locked up massively, and I lost, I think, 4 or 5 tenths. Although the lap was not too bad. And now you can see my fastest lap. And to be honest, I was really happy with this one. It was a really quick and consistent lap. I didn't really make too many mistakes in this lap, and you have to be really careful in Eau Rouge and Radion, because you can see we nearly lost the back end, which would have been a huge problem, because a lot of people were improving on their laps, and I didn't want to start too far back. And so far it's looking quite good. We are purple in the first sector, which is a great sign, and you can see the grip is there. We are able to carry a lot of speed around the corners. Again, in this part it's actually quite a difficult corner to get right, and especially the no-name corner is also quite tricky. Normally you try to use as much curb as possible, but in the rain it can be a lot more difficult. And Puon as well, especially in rain conditions, you have a lot of oversteer and you try to balance the car through the corners. But it was a lot of fun, because you can't really train these situations. They are really rare, and it's not really good to train those, because normally you would expect either dry qualifying or wet qualifying, not both. And so far it's looking really good. We are flat through Blanchimont and into these last few corners. This time we are braking a bit earlier in order to avoid any kind of lock up, and you can see the traction is really strong out of the last corner, and we go over the line in P3. And looking at the final results of qualifying, we stay there. So a really good qualifying, and I was extremely happy with it, considering I am not that strong in Spa and the setup was a bit defensive. But coming to the race now, we have 5 red lights and it's lights out and away we go. As always, we try to be a bit careful. We are on the inside, so we have to make sure that we don't hit anyone, which we were able to do, although we lost a bit on the exit, which is a problem I noticed quite a lot in the first corner. And now onto the straight. The 2 guys ahead, Finn and I think Epic, are fighting over P1 and we are gaining quite a lot on the straights. I think we are not really able to challenge them into the next corner, but so far so good. We are in P3 without damage, and that's all I need, because I think at the moment we are not able to fight them because they have more aggressive setups. You could see they were in qualifying quite a bit quicker, which might be due to more aggressive settings. And you can see I have a bit of understeer in the no-name corner, which also hints that the setup is more defensive. So at the moment we try to hold on to our position, try to stay close to them, because especially at the end of the stint in the laps 5 and 6, you can see at the moment we were a bit quicker compared to them because our tire wear was a bit less, and you can see they dive into the pits in after the 5th lap. And now it's about trying an overcut, so we have to push really hard, and I knew the setup would most likely be able to hold on. So the lap itself was actually quite nice, so I'll show it to you and I hope you guys enjoy.
Vergiss nicht, diese Runde in die Box zu fahren. Achte deinen Abstand zur Tempolimitlinie. Fahr nicht zu schnell.
So here we are at the end of the lap. You could see that we were able to set a personal best in the second sector, which is quite incredible considering our tires were basically gone. And we are now entering and exiting the pits, and you can see we are getting out ahead of Epic, which means that we were able to do an overcut, which was really remarkable. But now you can see we are going side by side through Eau Rouge, and we nearly lost the back end, which is really incredible. I was absolutely shitting my pants at this point because it was really dangerous, especially on cold tires. And now we are attacking into the next corner, but our tires are too cold and we have to stay in P2 essentially. And you can see just how much understeer we get. Finn is now looking for the inside, and we don't really defend that much, which is because with cold tires we have to brake much earlier and you don't have that much traction, so most likely he will get the position anyway. And I thought both of them will be most likely quicker at this point, and my plan was to play the long game and wait on the rain, and when the rain arrives we have an advantage over them. And you can see Deagle was able to do an overcut to us, which was also quite incredible. His pace in general was really strong, and especially his race pace was really strong. To do an overcut on 6 or 7 lap old super softs is quite remarkable, and you can see as well that he's on the soft, so he's going for a more aggressive setup, not setup, strategy. So let's see if it works or not. I think it might be close for him because the tires, the softs are not too bad in terms of pace, but I'm not sure if they hold on for, I think, 14 laps. So we have to see how it goes. At the moment we are able to stick with the guys ahead, but something that is also quite tricky is the traffic. People who start on a harder compound, who stay out longer, and they are blocking basically the people, or not blocking, they are just there, and you basically have to overtake him if you are on a different strategy, and depending on where you overtake them, it can be really good or really bad. The idea is that you try to overtake them into after this long straight, because in the second sector it's really difficult to overtake because most of the corners are single line, and here you can see as well Deagle and Epic are fighting their way through. I think Thorn is ahead, so they try to do quite aggressive moves. You can see there was contact with both of them, and I didn't really want any kind of contact, and maybe it's not the ideal way to go in terms of position, but I really don't want any kind of collision, especially in the second sector. Then I rather lose a bit of time and fight with clean tools, I think. So you can see at this point I tried to not dive. I think I tried to scare him a bit. You can see I was able to brake early enough to slow down my car, but this time we are close enough, and you might be wondering why I did this move into this corner. My idea was that maybe if I get a good exit I might get the DRS and slipstream from Epic ahead, but unfortunately I lost quite a bit of time there, and yeah, we are too far back, which is really not ideal. We lost a lot of time in this part, and again, luckily we were able to close the gap due to Epic fighting with the others, and this was basically, or this part here is basically the reason I lost a lot of time, because you can see we have Shelly ahead and Epic ahead, and basically Shelly gets the DRS and the slipstream from Epic ahead, so we basically have no chance to attack him on the straights, which means that either we try a move into the second sector or we wait another lap, and in both cases it's a risk that we lose the DRS from Epic ahead. And you can see we are going for a quick line through this chicane part. We are looking for the inside, but we are not really able to make a move, and I didn't really try to do a dive in this corner, and again you can see the understeer due to the less aggressive setup, and this basically means we have to do another lap behind him, which will cost us a lot of time, but as I said, it's better to lose time than to lose the race completely. I know this might lose me a podium, but it's better to lose a podium than to lose the race, I think. So yeah, not ideal, but there's not much we can do. And here you could see I asked Jeff because the rain was not really arriving, and that was also quite unlucky for us in Baku, where we had a dry setup. Basically the rain arrived really early, and this time we again had the wrong choice. We went for a less aggressive setup, and this time the rain didn't really come, so quite unlucky. But in lap 16 you can see Epic was able to increase the gap, which is actually no surprise because he's A, really quick, and B, has the better setup. And now you can see Flores was behind us, also on a setup with more turn in, and you can see he's just flying past. And you can see as well that we get a lot of understeer. We are not really able to take the corners as we should. But yeah, that was all part of the plan, but it didn't really work out, which is unfortunate. So now we have to stay close to Flores. I think he had a penalty and we didn't really have one, as Dominic again had some kind of problem and he DNF for this race, so it's really unfortunate for him because he has the pace to compete with the best, and he's probably one of the best, if not the best drivers. His pace is absolutely phenomenal, and it's really unfortunate that that he has quite a bit of bad luck. And we are already skipping to the last lap. You can see the rain arrived in the last few laps, I think 1 or 2 laps to go, and you can see our speed was actually quite strong. We were able to close the gap completely to Flores, and I think one more lap we might have had P3. You can see we just missed out by a few tenths to Epic, which is again a bit unlucky, but that seems to be a common theme around the season. So yeah, still P4, a good result, again points, and here you can see the driver's table after this round. We are in P4, we were able to get Dominic and Ollie, and yeah, at the moment it's looking quite good, and let's see if we're able to improve on that in the future rounds. And yeah, that were the races. I hope you guys enjoyed them, and I hope to see you in the next one as well. Goodbye!